All right, we have another viewer writing in. It's need relationship advice. I'm 20 years old and I've been with this girl for exactly 1 year now. She does love me and she does a lot for me and I'm genuinely comfortable with her. But she doesn't let me go out with friends and makes me feel like I can't go out with family. Whenever we get into fights, I get belittled for things I struggle with and accomplishments I'm yet to reach. I'm expected to tell her everything that happens in my life and then it gets used against me in arguments. Or I get in trouble for doing what I do, feeling a certain way. I feel I've come a long way from who I once was. I'm also constantly reminded about her ex through cheeky remarks and jokes, yet she protects him from me. I do want to spend the rest of my life with her and she's an angel, but it gets too much. She's also compared me to other people, including her dad, who does literally anything for her and doesn't give her no as an answer. And I can't give her everything she wants at this stage. What can I do to deal with this better? Wow. This story is low-hanging fruit. The part that I really want to go off on, the part that really bothers me is the line, I get in trouble. Is she your mama or your girlfriend? But I will practice restraint because it would be easy to go off for clicks, but that would be lazy. This platform is about men restoring agency, not attention seeking. And that means that we have to look at the real angle here, which is age and maturity relative to our understanding of what adult relationships require. For starters, as always, and never more important, fantasy is a man's biggest enemy. Clarity is his sharpest weapon. And this situation gives us a perfect opportunity to talk about frame, fantasy, and clarity. Let me explain. As we know, frame is your internal structure. A weak frame depends on external validation. A strong frame is the ability to maintain a high sense of self without external validation. The idea here is simple. Know who you are. Tell it to the world through actions and presence. Every move or decision you make is from a place of alignment. If it aligns, it flows. Clarity, on the other hand, is understanding what's real versus what's noise, what aligns versus what goes. And it's clear here that we're dealing with a man who has a weak frame, but I'm gonna give him some grace because he's 20. It is impossible to have a strong frame without clarity. And at 20 years old, the issue is almost always gonna be immaturity. Let's unpack it, let's dive into it. So he starts off by saying, she does love me. She does a lot for him. So he sees that her love is backed up by what she does for him. The problem here is he's not thinking about what she's doing to him. Right, so she does love me. She does a lot for me, and I'm genuinely comfortable with her. All right. So then he follows up with, she's controlling, she belittles me, she uses my vulnerabilities against me, so you can't tell her nothing. You can't confide in her, can't trust her. She compares me to her ex and her daddy. Dang, listen, I'm your man, I am not your father. And I damn sure ain't your ex. That's one of the worst things you can do to a young man, is compare him to people who he may, through immaturity, believe that is more capable than him. It's the worst thing a woman can do to a man without frame. But he still follows up this toxic behavior and he says, she's an angel and he wants to spend the rest of his life with her? So you want to spend the rest of your life being belittled and compared to other men? You see, the reason why that sounds crazy is because that's the conflict between fantasy and reality. He thinks this is love, but at 20 years old, he doesn't know what love is, because what he's describing is a relationship where his nervous system is attached to a woman who's weakening his frame. And it's because he's 20. You see, he's 20, comfortable, emotionally attached, and inexperienced. So he doesn't have the clarity to call this situation what it is, which is toxic, unhealthy. But like I said earlier, it's easy to talk about how the relationship is toxic, manipulative, and how terrible women can be. But we're having a higher IQ situation because this is not about shaming men. This is about giving men the clarity they need to navigate situations like this so they can have better relationships, right? Because a man with strong frame, if she aligns, he can take a woman like that and really teach her what it's like to be with a man. And so like there's a level of expectation she'll have to live up to. So if you really love a woman, you want your frame to be strong so you can maintain the relationship. The question we're really asking here is, what is a man's responsibility to himself inside a relationship? You following me? Because just because you love somebody, that doesn't remove your responsibility to protect your peace, maintain dignity, and stay connected to reality. And at 20, a lot of people, they don't have the maturity or clarity to carry that responsibility well. And in my opinion, I think as a human being, you have a right to go through that process. And relationships like this are what's teaching it, right? So clarity is very important because before you know if a relationship is good for you, you have to actually know what love actually is. And young people never take the time to really think about what is love. Is this what I'm experiencing? How should it show up in a relationship? What does peace and respect look like? If she's an angel, does her behavior match that consistently? Because if your idea of love allows you to be controlled, isolated from your family and friends, belittled, compared to other men, and emasculated, that's not love. That's a sign that you're living in fantasy. And the friction between fantasy and reality is often very painful. So most people are gonna say, leave the relationship. She's toxic, she's manipulative. And that's very true. But here's the deeper truth. If you don't look at the reasons why you stayed in this dynamic or why you allowed these dynamic to develop in the first place, then you're just gonna repeat this pattern in a relationship with another woman. Because you see, relationships are mirrors. They show you your insecurities. They show you where you lack boundaries. They show where you need validation. And it's really gonna reveal the parts of yourself that you haven't developed yet. Breaking up with her may solve the immediate issue, but running from the realities of what you've experienced and learned about yourself from this relationship isn't gonna solve it. The reason why people tolerate this type of stuff in relationships, it always comes down to you being attached to someone. That attachment is typically born out of fantasy. I always say you skip stage 2. This is where qualification and alignment occur. But emotions take over at attraction. Stage 1, you skip qualification and you start escalating. So there's an attachment there. Over time, people's flaws start to show up. So you have this idea of the woman. There are some good things that occur in a relationship, but the friction is this constant reminder that y'all not on the same page or this relationship isn't healthy. And people tend to ignore that because they want the fantasy and they'll do anything that they can to create that fantasy without understanding that this is the reality of the dynamic. You can't change it. What you think the situation is very different from the reality of it. And the way to build your frame is by being able to step back and say, you know what? There's never going to be a relationship that I'm in where I allow that person to make me feel less than what I am. No matter how much I want it, no matter how good other things are, there's certain things that I will not tolerate. I will never be in a relationship where I'm not allowed to have a life outside of that person that I'm with, because that's unhealthy. That's not good for my overall well-being. And I have really good relationships with friends and family. And then being able to stand on that and draw that boundary and walk away when someone's forcing you into being someone they want you to be and someone you're not, that's how you go through the process of developing your frame, is being strong to stick to your values. And it's very hard for young people to get there because they're not thinking like that. The mind isn't mature. When you take the time to focus on yourself, to have boundaries, to walk away when alignment isn't there, and you build your frame, that puts you in a position to be able to enjoy healthy relationships when they appear. Because if alignment is there, sometimes women need leadership and direction. So she could be a daddy's girl, but when she enters your world, she starts to understand that, hey, this is a relationship. I'm your man. I'm not your daddy. She would never bring up her ex. And if she did, you wouldn't care because you know who you are, where you're going, what you align with, and can't nobody be to her what you are. You believe that inside your soul. So that doesn't become a habit because you have that presence, that self leadership. Like she wouldn't dare to say that to you because she can feel that. It's not about what you say to a woman. It's about what she feels. And a lot of that has to do with what you truly believe within yourself. So I say all that to say that when you have frame, you give yourself an opportunity to have relationships with the people that you love and the people that you admire. Because one is born out of alignment, not attraction. But two, you have the mental awareness, clarity, and maturity to establish boundaries. And that person is either going to fall in line or they're going to go. So it gives you the opportunity to really make the most out of the rare connections that you find when there's alignment there. So don't be afraid to walk away from something because you're really walking towards your future. So with that being said, I hope this was insightful. There was a lot of things in here that I hate to see men go through, but this is what happens. It's the price of having a weak frame, but it's also the roadmap to developing a strong one. Let me know what you all think. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here.